Hi, welcome to Healthy for Life. I'm Dr. Scott McCann, the Director of Health Education with the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department, and this is my delightful co-host.
Delightful. They get better every time, Scott. Thank you. Yes, I'm Rose Davis, also with the Public Health Department, and Healthy for Life is about promoting healthy behavior and preventing health problems.
And this is the first of a two-part series on a really important subject, diabetes, which is affecting a lot of people in our community. In this first show, we're going to talk about the symptoms of diabetes, what it is, what are the different types, and some of the causes. In the second show next month, we'll talk about treatments for diabetes and preventing diabetes, really important.
Yeah, it is an important topic. I even recently heard that the CDC, that's the Centers for Disease Control, are considering it an epidemic.
It's so common now. 23 million adults in the United States have diabetes.
Wow.
6% of adults in Santa Barbara County, which is about 20,000 people. And of course, the biggest concern is children now having diabetes. Very rare in the past, but unfortunately becoming more common. Diabetes was the 9th leading cause of death in Santa Barbara County in 2007. And unfortunately, it's almost twice as common among Latinos as Anglos.
Oh, really?
And so really important subject matter, and we're going to get into it.
Wow, those are kind of scary numbers. I've heard about the children's getting it, their children getting it now too, so that is scary.
And obviously tied in with obesity and the obesity epidemic. So I wanted to start by showing a video of a real person, Alma Perez. This video was produced by the state of California, but her mother died of diabetes-related problems, and she's trying to protect her children and family from also getting diabetes. So let's take a look at that video.
Yeah, learn from their lessons.
My mom, who passed away, brought me to Parlier about 21 years ago. My mother was a happy person. She was an active person, but then when she had her first heart attack, her activity started decreasing, and then she had diabetes. If we would have known, and if we would have told, maybe she would have lived longer, and we would have her here longer and told other people who are suffering from that too. But the good thing is now we're aware more of what's going on with heart problems, diabetes, if you don't eat healthy and become active. So, yes. Where's the ball? When my mom was getting really, really sick, I started saying to myself, okay, I'm going to have a baby, and I want to be there for my son, my children, and I need to be healthy to make myself feel better. My self-esteem needs to go up. So I little by little started adding fruits and vegetables to my everyday life, and try not to eat so much fast food, because in America, everywhere you go, it's fast food, tacos, hamburgers, whatever. So little by little, adding vegetables and fruit and cutting a little bit of the junk food. Balanced diet. That means, you have to add certain vegetables to your food, certain fruits to your foods, for you could have enough nutrients for your body to react and, have a good body and mind. I always have grapes, plums, nectarines, peaches. Whatever the season is, I get the fruit. Oregano, mint, hierbabuena, all those plants. And they give them when you cook soups, it gives it an extra spice, extra taste that makes the food taste better. Especially if you're cooking chicken and you could add mint to it in the oregano, and it gives it a good taste. It adds more flavor to your food. And it's pretty healthy. They're green. Giovanni's 10 months. I'm getting him used to try different fruits, because they tell you start with one and then go with another one. For dinner, I made chicken wings grilled outside to not use so much oil. Then when they were not so hot, I brought them in, cut them in half, made rice with broccoli, and then added the chicken wing. So I have chicken, which is meat, I have rice, which is grains, and then broccoli, which is the vegetables. And then I also made beans, pinto beans and black beans, because black beans have a little bit more iron than the pinto beans, so together make a good bond of a lot of iron. So that's for dinner tonight, and it's delicious. Instead of adding dressings to your salads, you could add a little bit of lemon, make your own vinegar, and that'll give it the taste you need for your veggies or your salads. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Wow, what a good video.
Yeah. Some good
Great.
tips
Good
there.
for Alma.
Yeah, definitely.
And good for us because we have a great guest today. This is my good friend, too, Dr. Andrea Ruth, who is the medical director for the Diabetes Resource Center. We're so glad that you're here today, Andrea.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Rose.
So you're the expert. First, can you tell us a little bit about the organization you work with?
Sure. The Diabetes Resource Center is a local nonprofit organization, and our mission is to try to reduce the incidence of obesity and diabetes in families and children. And we provide education and advocacy, and we try to work with families on lifestyle changes.
Wow, great.
Awesome.
Important work.
That's probably the hardest part, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Getting us to change our bad habits. So, Dr. Ruth, so what is diabetes, first of all, and what causes it?
Okay, so diabetes mellitus is actually a group of metabolic disorders that cause high levels of blood glucose or blood sugar. And there are related to the body's inability to either make insulin, which is the hormone that controls your blood glucose, or to use that insulin. And there are actually several types, type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes we'll talk about today.
Right.
So type 1 diabetes is actually the least common. It accounts for about 5 to 10% of cases. And in type 1 diabetes, the body is not able to make enough insulin. And because of that reason, we can't use the glucose or the sugar in our blood and convert it into energy. This is usually an inherited disease, and it's triggered by an infection or some other stress to the body.
It's something that's lying within you already that you may have inherited, and then boom, as soon as you get this.
That tendency towards diabetes.
Okay.
And type 1 diabetes is treated through insulin, usually through injections. I think most people are familiar with that. Type 2 diabetes is the most common cause. That affects about 90 to 95% of diabetics. And in type 2 diabetes, either the pancreas, which is the organ that produces insulin, either it's not producing enough insulin or the body is not able to use the insulin adequately, so the blood sugar doesn't get into your cells. Okay, and what happens when you eat food, the carbohydrates and starches are broken down into sugar, but they don't go into the cells, and the sugar remains in your blood, and people have high blood sugar, and this is what leads to the complications. So type 2 diabetes is more common in African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders.
Oh, wow.
And do you know that actually 23% of all adults over the age of 60 have diabetes?
Wow.
I know. Well, I've always thought of it that it was kind of a senior's disease, if you will. And then now we are hearing so much about type 2 especially.
In children even.
In children, right.
At unfortunately, all ages. It used to be considered an adult disease, and now it is an obesity-related disease, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Right. Now, what about gestational?
Okay,
I've
so-
had friends that have actually had this. I didn't know what they were going through, but it didn't sound good.
Yeah, so pregnant women who have never had diabetes before can actually have high blood sugar levels during their pregnancy, and this is called gestational diabetes, and it affects about 4% of pregnant women. Now, the cause is complicated, and we're not exactly sure of the entire cause, but we have some clues. The hormones related to pregnancy block the action of the mother's insulin, so she may actually have to make significantly more insulin in order to use her blood sugar, and we call this insulin resistance. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
And insulin resistance makes it hard for the mother's body to use the sugar, and she needs to make sometimes up to 3 times as much insulin in order to control her blood sugar. So when she's not able to make enough insulin, that's when her blood sugar rises, and that's when she's diagnosed with gestational diabetes.
And does being heavy at the beginning of your pregnancy increase the chance?
Yes, it certainly is a risk factor,
Okay,
and it can also be related to the age of the mother and to family history of diabetes as well. So those are some of the risk factors related to gestational diabetes. What happens, it typically becomes apparent later in pregnancy, and if it's untreated, the pancreas will be working overtime to produce enough insulin, and the insulin doesn't work effectively. The blood sugar level rises, and the baby sees those higher blood sugars, and that leads to the baby putting on extra fat on their body and becoming large, and we call that term macrosomia. Microsomia is large,
overly
a
heavy
large baby.
Okay.
Okay, I understand the macro part.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the
I didn't know.
somia was
Big
lost
body,
that.
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So then we're concerned about the health problems related to being a large baby. During birth, that baby can suffer trauma when the shoulders are not able to pass through the birth canal. That can lead to fractures of the clavicle or to nerve damage.
Oh.
Also, that baby who's been seeing high blood sugars throughout the whole pregnancy, they're making their own insulin. And when they're born, that high level of insulin in their own body leads to a low blood sugar in their body. So those babies, when they're born, can have very low blood sugar, and that's often one of the complications that we look for.
Wow.
The treatment for gestational diabetes, we're trying to stabilize the blood glucose levels, and this theme you'll hear throughout the rest of what we're talking about. It involves diet and a physical activity, and then in some women it might involve insulin injections in order to bring their blood sugar level close to the level of what a pregnant woman without gestational diabetes would have.
So there is treatment available.
There is
and
treatment.
Lifestyle change that you can do to help.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yes. The other thing perhaps that some people are, I think we all, as you said, we all know people who had gestational diabetes. But what perhaps people don't know is that once you've had gestational diabetes, your chances are 2 out of 3 that it will occur in future pregnancies.
Oh, no.
And in a few women, that gestational diabetes is actually type 1 or type 2 diabetes that is becoming unmasked by the pregnancy. So,
oh, my gosh.
Finally, those large babies are at risk for both obesity and diabetes later in life.
Wow.
So it is an important topic, but as you said, there's treatment, and that's what the education is about.
So if you get your prenatal care, you'll find out if you have this or at risk for this, and start addressing it as early in a pregnancy as possible.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
And then I've heard this term and had a friend who had what they call pre-diabetes. Now, can you tell us what that is?
Yes, and pre-diabetes is perhaps is certainly more common than diabetes. And in pre-diabetes, a person's blood glucose level is higher than what is normal, but it hasn't reached the level of diabetes yet. And about 11% of people who have pre-diabetes will go on to develop diabetes within a year.
Oh, gosh.
If they don't make changes. And again, with changes, you can decrease that risk.
So that's the red flag, the time to start making your changes is when your doctor says, you're getting close.
Right. Well, how do you know if you have prediabetes, though? I mean, other than if you're not at the doctor's,
Great
what are
question.
symptoms?
So that's the tricky part. There usually are no symptoms to prediabetes. If you are obese, you might know that you carry that risk. If you have a family history, you may know that you carry that risk. But it's a test that your doctor performs, either the fasting plasma glucose level or the oral glucose tolerance test. And either one of those can be used to diagnose prediabetes. Normally, a person with normal blood sugar, fasting, meaning when you haven't eaten anything, is under 100. If you have pre-diabetes, it's between 100 and 125. And if you have diabetes, that fasting blood sugar is 126 or above. So those are sort of the numbers that, and again, the good news is that people with pre-diabetes can delay or prevent the onset of diabetes.
If you have a regular physical exam, would they check your blood sugar
They
level?
generally,
Is that routine?
yes, they are generally checking that, and that is something you can discuss with your doctor.
So if you get your annual physical, like we've recommended on other shows, you'll find out if you're getting close to this diabetic level.
Absolutely, and as a pediatrician, again, this is one of the most common conditions that I now see is this pre-diabetes, these children who are running blood sugars that are in this pre-diabetic range because of obesity.
Now, we're old. Let's face it, okay? We are. So they do blood tests on us annually, but they don't do that for children, do they? So how would you know if your child has prediabetes?
Generally, the pediatrician will choose to do that test based on whether or not the child is overweight or obese. And what your family history is. So if a parent has diabetes and they have an overweight child, that's the child we're going to be concerned about looking for the prediabetes.
Right.
So then I guess it makes sense that diabetes is increasing because obesity is increasing, and that's the main risk factor in addition to the ones you mentioned. Anything else about causes of diabetes you want to say?
Well, speaking about the obesity, we know that during the last 30 years, the prevalence of obesity has increased dramatically in this country. And 34% of adults are technically classified as obese, and 60% of adults are classified as overweight.
Wow.
So it's certainly
Yeah.
is among us.
How do you know when you've crossed that line from just
Overweight to obese? Good
obese?
question.
There are standards, Rose, called the body mass index, and it's
Okay,
a
I've heard of
measurement
that.
based on your height and weight, and with that you're given a number, and a body mass index of 25 to 29 is considered overweight, and a body mass index of 30 or above is considered obese. So
Okay.
you can take that measurement
I
and
don't
know.
want to. I'm afraid, but
It's helpful-
I guess
it's
it's
helpful
better
for
to know. It might be the wake-up call for me to stop eating so much cheese and crackers, right?
Exactly. With your
Lifestyle
wine,
change,
I know. but
Rose. Lifestyle change.
You haven't switched to carrots like I recommend.
Sorry.
So one thing I learned preparing this from you was about this velvety skin or hair on the neck. What is that about?
So there is something called acanthosis nigricans. It's sort of a dark velvety skin on the back of the neck. Sometimes it's in the armpits. And people who have a risk of diabetes and have insulin resistance, they will show that on their skin.
Oh, interesting.
And it's interesting from the point of view of a physician, because I can use that to point out to a patient, here's a physical sign. You asked, how do you know if you have prediabetes? That may be the only physical sign. And if those people lose weight and change their lifestyle, that dark velvety skin will go away. So
Wow.
that's,
But you
that's
can
very
have it
interesting.
without having the dark skin that you're talking about.
thank you for, yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay. Just didn't want people to think, oh, I don't have that, I don't have
So they're-
diabetes.
yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
But
okay.
they
and-
could, yeah, yeah, okay.
And bring on more
okay.
cheese and crackers, right? It's no. It's no. Okay.
How about symptoms? You've mentioned some. Are there any others?
So again, if people who are pre-diabetic may have no symptoms, but once you are diagnosed with, once you have diabetes, you may feel tired all the time. You may be thirsty and hungry very often. You may have a sudden weight loss, blurry vision. You may get vaginal infections more often. You may have tingling or numbness of your hands or feet, have wounds that won't heal, have to urinate more frequently, or even have sexual functioning problems. Now, you can see the symptoms are very wide-ranging. It is
Right.
important, as you said, Scott, to have an annual physical exam where you have this blood sugar check so you can detect the prediabetes before you have these symptoms.
Yeah, because some of these sound pretty serious, and you don't want to wait till then if you
Absolutely.
can avoid it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Wow. And why is it a concern? Why you can say, well, I have diabetes, but so what? I'll take insulin, or why does it matter?
Okay, so when diabetes isn't treated, or when it's not treated adequately, you can have a number of complications such as heart attack or stroke.
Ooh, okay.
You can
That's good
change
reason.
the shape of the lens in your eye. You can have kidney disease, nerve disease, various infections, and even circulation problems in your hands and feet. And all of these are related to your level of blood sugar.
Now, I've heard about people having to have limbs amputated. Is that true? And gee, is that very often, or?
You know, it actually is much more common than you would imagine. And all of these complications can go together. So you can have someone who's receiving dialysis because of the kidney failure, who has had to have an amputation of part of one of their legs, and they may be undergoing visual problems
Oh, my
or
gosh.
blindness because of the diabetes complications.
I think a lot of people have no idea how serious this can
No.
be.
Absolutely.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
And it can ultimately kill you, I guess, right?
Absolutely, and because of its connection to heart attack and stroke and kidney failure, diabetes
Yeah.
can lead to death.
Scary,
Wow.
scary stuff.
Yeah, no kidding.
We are. And I mentioned at the beginning. Next show, you'll be back and tell us about treatments and prevention. But what are some of the resources in town where people can go for help with this
Yeah, we
diabetes?
know about your resource center,
Yes.
but I had never, I hate to tell you, I'd never heard of that before today. So, what do you guys provide, and then what else is out there?
Okay, well, we're lucky in Santa Barbara. There are a number of organizations that that are concerned about diabetes and education. So the Diabetes Resource Center, our office is on State Street, and we have a website with a number of resources. Also, the Sansom Diabetes Research Institute is one of the leading institutes in this country for research and treatment related to diabetes. The Public Health Department, of course, is also a resource for many people in our community with diabetes. It will be their primary provider, and or your own personal physician.
Good.
Right.
Good to know there's help available out there. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a serious disease. The gestational one with the babies, that's what I guess scares me the most, that so the baby can come into the world basically pre-diabetic, is that right?
Or they can come in with that risk programmed in already to be at risk for diabetes, and with a fat deposited in their body already that they're going to carry for the rest of their life, and will carry that risk.
Wow.
Wow.
That is pretty scary.
Big concern. Well, maybe we should go ahead, because I know when we get to treatment and prevention, we're going to talk about diet. And if you saw our last show, we had our first food cooking for life, healthy food segment.
Yes.
And I think we've got another one for today. So let's take a look at that.
Some pitas, yummy pitas.
All right. Hi, welcome to our cooking segment for today. We're making a healthy snack, after school sort of snack with pita, fruit, and a little bit of peanut butter. Another dish out of the great Everyday Healthy Meals cookbook from the Network for Healthy California. You can get this online, just Google Network for Healthy California, or you can call me at work, 681-5270, and I'll send you a copy for free. It's such a great tool, and we've made several meals now from it, and they're all good. So cheap, easy, and healthy, you can't beat that. So Rose, you want to start, how about you take the peach?
This looks so perfect. So this is everything that children like, and still healthy,
and
which
we should
rarely happens.
say
I think we can all agree, so this is great.
Exactly. One special thing we're trying to do, we're using whole wheat pitas instead of regular. So we tend to use whole grain things when possible, and low-fat peanut butter. So because this is where your calories are going to come in normally. So
Now,
watch for that.
You can still get the all-natural peanut butter if you prefer that, like the Laura Scutters or equivalents. And the oil is all at the top, so just pour off some of the oil. You create your own low-fat version of that peanut butter.
Good tip. Good tip. So we're just going to slice up the banana, slice up the apple, slice up the peach, and we'll be and start smearing peanut butter. I often have trouble opening pita pockets here.
Sometimes if you warm them in the microwave first, they get a little softer, and so they tend to crack less.
I'm trying,
but
not
you're right,
to tear
that's
any
always
holes.
a challenge, getting them open.
On that one. And
not cracked.
And this is something older kids could even make themselves.
Absolutely.
If mom and dad are away, when they come home, you can whip it up.
Or
it actually
while they're
seems
gone.
like a dessert thing to me.
I know,
Because
but look
with
at
all
this.
the sweet fruit and peanut butter and all that.
That's true, but look at all the vegetables. Pardon me, I didn't mean vegetables, I meant vitamins, that other V word.
Yes.
Vitamins that they're getting with this. It's awesome.
Well, and this is good for me because I'm not a big banana eater, but if you put enough stuff on it, I'll eat it. And chocolate or, in this case,
something.
I haven't tried that. I'll have peanut or bananas and prime rib.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, so this looks good.
All right, so I did my peaches in as thin a slice as I could.
Make it easy.
They're kind of soft.
Construct. Do you want to do, that might be enough. You want to do half an apple? And I'll start smearing peanut butter. Again, low-fat peanut butter. In this case, crunchy. Has a little extra texture that way. Not too much, maybe a tablespoon or a tablespoon and a half. Let's give it a little that peanut flavor. So I'm just putting in the banana slices into the pita here. Nice thing about pita is it's its own carrier. You don't even need a plate, really.
I know.
So got just.
If you're really good, you get by without a napkin.
I'm not that good. I'm
really?
kind of a messy eater. So here we'll start putting in the peach here. So it's just banana. I mean, the truth is you could put in whatever vegetables you want, or vegetables. I'm doing fruits you want. But we're using peaches, bananas, and apples.
These apples look so good. Really fast and easy and common ingredients that you can find at any grocery store.
Oh yeah.
So I love that about it.
And inexpensive and tasty. I'm thinking. So, cheers.
Cheers. Look at this. Not one crack in my pita. You did well.
Oh my gosh.
You did. Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. I don't even like bananas that much, but this is great.
You can't go wrong with peanut butter.
So try it at home. Get your free cookbook, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Right. Well,
Pretty good, huh?
I liked that pita a little too much. So I have to go back to the whole obesity thing. I got to get this straight in my mind. Because we know that obesity can lead to diabetes. So, but what exactly, I mean, why? Why
Right.
does that happen?
That's
Why
a-
do I have to give up my cheese and crackers, Dr. Ruth? That's what I really need to know.
That's a great question, Rose. And I think many of us don't realize that the fat in our body is not just static. It's not just sitting there, but it's an active part of our metabolism. And fat produces inflammatory molecules. Those fat cells are producing things that lead to inflammation in your body and lead to things like high blood pressure and heart disease, and essentially the complications of obesity. But then what happens with relation to the diabetes is we know that insulin is the way that we get the sugar out of our blood into our cells. Those fat cells are insulin resistant. They require a lot more insulin to have the sugar enter the cells. And so when you have an excess amount of fat, you have a lot of blood sugar sitting around in your blood that cannot make it into the cells
okay, that
because
makes
it
sense.
requires more insulin. And the fat cells also cause fat to be deposited in other places in your body. So in your internal organs, in your liver, in your
Ew.
pancreas, they can affect the way the signaling for insulin is in your body. So the complications of obesity are not just cosmetic. You know, it can affect, it can cause something called fatty liver that some people are diagnosed with. It can affect diabetes, and then all of the other, the heart disease, the stroke, and then what we're talking about today, diabetes.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. They think it's just you look a little fat and that's
Right.
the only consequence, and you get tired more easily. But then,
Yeah, I was going to say
you know,
that's the worst,
Yeah.
really, part
Yeah.
of it is just being tired all the time and never feeling good.
Wow, it's so important. And let's talk about the resources one more time, because I really want people, if you think, if you're obese and haven't had your blood sugar checked, definitely do that. But if you need more information, can you tell us one more time where those key places to go?
sure. So in Santa Barbara County, we have the Diabetes Resource Center of Santa Barbara County, the Sansum Diabetes Research Institute, the Public Health Department. I will mention Sansum Clinic actually has a patient education resource room where people can go to get information. And then the neighborhood clinics that I see patients at, they also have a diabetes program. So I would say we're lucky that we have many resources here in Santa Barbara County that people can turn to. And the other message I'd like to give is it would be best to prevent these issues.
Yeah,
So when we're talking about families and talking about children and young adults trying to prevent obesity before we have to deal with these complications. But if you are concerned about your weight, that even at that point you can be tested and you can prevent diabetes by changing your lifestyle.
Great,
Right.
great. And that's what our next show will be about next month, is the prevention and treatment too, so we can get a little more detail on how to treat diabetes. But thank you so much.
looking forward
So
to that.
valuable. I mean, we could save lives if people
That's true.
made some of these changes and were more aware. So really important. Thank you for
Yeah,
being
thank you
here.
so
You're
much.
welcome, and thank you for choosing this important topic to educate people in Santa
sure.
Barbara about.
Definitely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great.
So join us next month and you'll learn how to prevent and treat diabetes more specifically.
Right.
Thank you.
Have a good one.